Hi, Shauna. Thank you for your email. I've got, I think, what you're describing in your question. I think I've got the right equation showing here on the screen, and if I don't, then let me know, and I can always do this again. That's no problem. So for domain and range, really what you're considering for domain and range is not so much what x and y can be, but what they can't be. And what I mean by that is that there's some values that will make our function just undefined or not have a real value at those values. So we need to check those out and eliminate them, or at least sort of make note of them. And that's really where domain and range come in, and why it's important is to make sure that the function exists for all of the values that we're saying it exists for. So for instance, with the function that you gave me, the thing that presents sort of a dangerous area is the square root. Because when we're trying to take a square root of a negative number, we get into trouble. We get into non-real numbers or imaginary numbers when we're trying to get the square root of a negative. So the first part of it, your rational function here, if I've got that right, it's x plus 3 over 4. There shouldn't be any values that we have to exclude there. Anything should work. But when we're looking at the last part of the graph here, last part of the function, sorry, it should only be a positive value so that we can get a real value for the square root. So what we have to do is consider what values will make this negative inside the bracket. And it looks like if we start at 0, if we solve this for 0, and then we kind of work backwards from there, it's a lot easier. So x squared minus 9 will equal 0 if x is equal to plus or minus 3. So that gives us our starting point. Plus or minus 3 is going to be bad. And so the values that we want to include here are anything larger than 3. We want x definitely to be greater than 3, but not equal, equal is okay as well, greater than or equal to 3. And we want x to be less than or equal to negative 3. And so the range of the x values that we don't want to include is anything between minus 3 to 3. And so when we write the domain for this function, we're going to have to write it as negative infinity all the way up to negative 3. And we want to include negative 3 as an answer. And we're going to write that as a union with the set 3 all the way up to positive infinity. And that's our domain. Okay. Okay, so that's the domain, and with the range, really the range is determined by the domain, right? We get the y value from what we put in for x. So now that we know that we're never going to put in a value between minus 3 and 3 for x, then we have to think about what the range will be, how that's going to affect the range. If it was just the square root function that we were considering, then that would mean that the range would have to always be positive. So we would say y is greater than or equal to 0. But in this case, the other part of the function, this part here, the x plus 3 over 4, it can be a negative number. And so basically there's anything that we can put in for x will give us any value for y from negative infinity to positive infinity. And so we're going to write the range is negative infinity to positive infinity, and we use the round brackets when we're doing infinity. And so that's really what we're looking for domain and range. The things that are going to restrict your x values in your domain are things like rational functions, where you have a variable in the denominator, square root functions, things like that, where you have to really pay attention to the kinds of values you'll get and eliminate anything that's going to give you a wonky value. So I hope that helps, and if I don't have that equation right, don't hesitate to email me back and let me know what the real equation was, and I can do this again, no problem. Thanks.